the ANC in Mpumalanga has elected new leadership, and Ndlovu is the new chairperson after defeating Lucky Ndinisa in that contest. Lindokuhle Xulu is deputy secretary, and Mandla Ndlovu is the treasurer, the newly elected treasurer of the province. So let's go to one of our other reporters now covering that story, and Lindokuhle Xulu joins us now from Emalahleni. So it's all done and dusted in as far as the leadership is concerned, Lindo, but these conferences are always about leadership and more. Tell me where we are in as far as the more is concerned, the policies and other issues. And also I'm imagining that conversations about the status, for instance, of Mandla Ndlovu, who's been elected treasurer and has, despite the fact that he's facing murder charges and has had to step aside, all of those must be conversations that the ANC there, but also the ANC at a national level, must be having at this point.
That's right, Tulas, and in fact it is a hot topic, the one of Mandla Ndlovu, who has been officially elected as the treasurer for the province of Mpumalanga here at the 13th conference of the ANC in this province. But I can tell you that leadership did not shy away from actually addressing some of those issues in terms of why is it and how that Mandla Ndlovu finds himself in fact elected. I can tell you that he was not here at the conference. He in fact voluntarily stepped aside in terms of being an MEC but also being part of government, and I can tell you that what is currently happening is basically saying that he must in fact follow some processes first, and those that include the courts, before he can actually be acting in his new position. But it sounds very complicated as I explain it, and that is why we have roped in Ubaba Upulemabe just to give us a sense of what is it and how they'll be dealing with the issue of Mandla Ndlovu, since he has officially stepped aside voluntarily. Thank you so much for joining us, Babu Mabe. Just explain to us, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of questions around the election of Mandla Ndlovu. First of all, members of the ANC that have been that have stepped aside or have been told to step aside, are they in fact able to stand for conference as we've seen, and how does that process unfold?
The African National Congress will, especially the National Executive Committee, will receive a report from comrades of the African National Congress who would have been deployed to facilitate and run the conference of Mpumalanga. We do happen to be part of those comrades who have been deployed here. We are well aware of the developments. It's only fair to allow the organization to process all of this and then also look at its own guidelines, establish whether its guidelines are strengthened enough to provide clarity on this kind of instances, so that individual leaders of the ANC, we don't necessarily articulate or really place our understanding that might be misaligned with what is expected out of policy. Policies of the ANC in many occasions are work in progress. When things unfold, when there are developments, political developments, like what you are seeing now, you have asked comrades to step aside, but they remain members of the African National Congress. At what point do they make themselves available, for instance, on instances of being nominated? Now, the difficulty, which is what Comrade Nati was trying to deal with, is that because you have stepped aside, it follows that even if you were to be elected, you will be incapable of perform in terms of your position because of the sort of conditionalities attached to your role. So it's lessons that are being learned. We will have to tighten our own internal mechanisms and systems to be able to manage some of these developments. Because if we don't do that, the risk you have is that Pule Mabi will come out and place what is his own understanding. Mdu Manana could come and say what is his own understanding. Dakota, so members, individual leaders or cadres of the National Executive Committee. So what we need to facilitate or solicit is to effectively make sure that there is a semblance of what looks like universal consensus amongst there must be a sense of unanimity amongst cadres of the ANC, we ought to understand and react to hot subjects like this in the very same manner and consistent with our own policy guidelines.
Yeah, I guess the simple question is, what happens now? He's been elected, he's the new treasurer of Mpumalanga. What happens? Is he going to act? Is he not going to act? What is the process that is to unfold now?
Well, the simplest answer, because we're now using words like simplicity, the simple answer is that he would have requested, in terms of your own words, he would have requested to step aside at the time. Now, even at the time of his election, he has not been tried in an instance where he would have been found either guilty or innocent of the charge. It means that he remains in that position of a suspension. You understand? So of course we recognize that there was an election, but his condition he finds himself in makes it difficult for him to perform in terms of the role that he has been assigned.
Until he clears his name.
Well, of course, until the court clears his name.
Mr. Pulemab, I know you are part of the conference.
Yes,
we'll leave it there for now. Sorry for
I think just for the benefit of your viewers, because the live of the 13th provincial conference is ongoing. Quite peaceful. We have now entered a session of nominating additional members. You know, and you would have seen yourself. I mean, the mood, the scenery, sort of a peaceful one. And the ANC, like we said earlier, we really commend members of the ANC in Mpumalanga to have carried themselves in the manner that they did. We hope and wish that the conduct displayed by these delegates would become one that guides the conduct of our structures throughout the country, especially as we prepare for the 55th National Conference of the ANC.
Thank you so much, Ulemabe from the African National Congress, slotting in there an update in terms of what is currently happening, but more than anything commending the fact that this has been relatively peaceful, because we've seen the type of scenes that are coming from Mpumalanga, and in fact speaking about one that involves Mandla Ndlovu, who in fact is the one that is in the courts in terms of defending himself against a murder charge. But one of the things that he says, and I think it's very complicated as they try to explain it in terms of what will happen now, but one of the things they are saying is that Mandla Ndlovu remains a member of the ANC while he is on a step aside, and while he is on suspension, he in fact is eligible to participate in such conferences and as a delegate and as also a nominee. He in fact sent a letter to say that whatever nominee he would receive, he accepts it. He did not come here in person, but one of the things that Pulemabe is saying, and I think I'm gathering from him, is that he is a member of the ANC. While he is dealing with the issues that are in the courts, he can be a nominee, he can accept nomination, and he can be elected, but he will not act as a treasurer of Mpumalanga until he clears his name in the courts.
Sure. It says a lot, doesn't it, Lindo, about his lobbying power and I suppose the support he enjoys in the branches of the ANC, that he's not even at the conference, but he's been elected in absentia in this way. That's eNCA's Lindokuhle Xulu out in Emalahleni for us there, covering the provincial conference of the ANC that is underway there, having elected the top leadership structure at least, and now going on to elect the additional members of the provincial executive committee. Mandla Ndlovu, not even there, got elected to provincial treasurer despite facing those charges that he faces in a court of law and having had to step aside, and was removed, of course, as an MEC in the province of Mpumalanga.